Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Hello, hello, hello. I have a question for you. Have you ever felt completely lost? You know, seeking purposeful direction that could and should propel your mission within your divine journey to that next level, but still it hasn't happened. Well, my name is Lauren Michaels Harris, and I'm the founder of P3, the Journey Series. People come to me because they're wounded. Many are scared, and even there are those who are bruised simply because they feel that they are increasingly, for whatever reason, losing their ability to dream. Now, this P3 program is not for a person who's just looking to start a business, no, but rather for those of you out there who have been on your journey and you've been navigating within your divine purpose, but you still desire to elevate to that level that you have not reached yet. If this is appealing, if this describes you, then I want to have a chat with you. I want to hear your story. So use the link below to get registered for your free seat at P3, the Journey Series. And let's get started, one story at a time. I'll see you inside. Click the link.
Don't see what's yours for the taking tonight.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and a good morning. Ooh, now wait a minute. Is Ken in here? Y'all, look, I had to go out and come back because it was an echo. I thought I was going to be able to deal with it. I was like, who said that? And it was like driving me bananas. So I had to go out and come back in. So I hope it doesn't mess up the broadcast. I'm going to just get in here. You know what? Let's go here. I want to see something. I want to see if my friend Ken, our guest, is back. Okay, there. He's backstage. Woo! Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Okay, I'm back. Welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. It's the last live show of the week. Let me turn this up. Okay, there we go. Of the week. Good morning, beautiful people. I see you looking just as gorgeous as always. I am on my way. So please pray for traveling mercies. On my way tomorrow. So excited to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Now, last year was the first year my husband and I went, and it was the Trueness Project. It is again the Trueness Project. Hello, M. Teresa Lawrence, attorney turned game changer. And I have a lot of those. I have 3 attorneys, 2 surgeons who have walked away from those pinnacles that they've achieved in their lives to not just do what they can get paid for, but to step inside the promises of what they were made for. And that is the most exciting thing one could ever hope to do or be. So, M. Teresa Lawrence, the Trueness Project, we will be back in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So if you're in the area, met a guy from Laramie just the other morning at breakfast, and he's going to come and join us, hopefully, at least he said he was, starting Friday. Okay, I go tomorrow, but the event starts Friday. Saturday is the big day. We are going for another Guinness Book World Record. Michael from Guinness will be there. You see him on America's Got Talent. He's the guy who's watching everything like a hawk. I'm going to try to distract him so we can get an extra couple people in. I'm kidding. That's an angle. We don't want it that way, right? So I'll be there and going to actually see the Yellowstone tour before I leave on Sunday. So I'm very excited about that. So please pray for all of us and that we change some lives, okay? Welcome to today's installment. Another great show in store for you. I have a guest today that really, a lot of his story reminds me of my own. So I always get excited and I just can't hide it. Cue the Pointer Sisters. When someone comes down the road, and they've got some refrigerator magnets, some t-shirts, some souvenirs, if you will, from some of those dark neighborhoods that I passed through. And I thought, what? You were there too? Right. That's the case today. So it reminds me of God's grace. You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes you think, can this be true? Am I Cinderella and this shit gonna turn back into a boot? At midnight, is my world going to turn back into a pumpkin? And then comes along a Ken Miller who reminds you you're not alone. He did it for me too. He did it. Now you see where that word is, T-O-O, at the end of the sentence, where it is a blessing. It is increase. Don't move it. The minute you move T-O-O, guess what you get? Oh boy, that's too good to be true. It's too late. I'm too ugly. I'm too poor. Whatever it is. No, it's not true. You can say so. I'm so tired. This is so much. But remember that God promised to never give us more than we can handle. And that's why Ken Miller is here today. I'm telling you, you talk about going from the bottom to the top. And then it was like he hit some wet spot and his ass slid all the way back down to the bottom past where he started. But guess what? He climbed back up through the slime, through all the slippery stuff. This is the kind of story. If we look over our shoulders, and many of us have them, so check your own book, right? We can see our own fingerprints, our own nail scratches where we made it back. Honor those, right? And then you get to do what Ken Miller's here to do today, and hopefully, possibly even more. So I'm not going to read, good morning to you too from Canada. Believe in yourself. That's right, Robert Brooker. Good to see you, my friend. I'm going to get Ken in here. He's never been here before. And protocol, y'all. Let's not forget our manners. We hit the hearts. We put them up there. Because that is actually our way of welcoming our guests to the show and saying, we're so glad you're here. So you guys put it out there. Here we go. He's on his way down the hall right now. Author and man, game changer, Ken Miller.
Good morning, Dr. Lauren.
Oh, good morning. I'm so sorry. I had to go. I barely made it. I got back here. I was like, I'm trying it. I kept sitting there going, do it. No, don't do it. You're going to lose the whole broadcast because I've done that before and the whole stream disappears. So God is with us today, as always. How you feeling this morning? Can you look good?
Man, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I feel so good. I was like, your intro is so incredible. And then just looking at Good Morning, Beautiful People. And that's the way I look at people, man. I think we're all children of God and we're all beautiful.
Yes,
And
we
when
are.
I saw that, that just put a smile on my face. And I'm just so glad to be here. And I truly believe in some value added. So
Yes. Can I get an amen, everybody? Put it in the comment section. Yeah. So here's what we're going to do. I am not a big one on bios, you know. It's just like you don't text everything you just don't. So I thought what we do is, and we've been doing it for a couple of years here, is I'm going to jet out for a second and leave you up here on the stage for about 1 minute, where I'm hoping you will be able to just pour into the audience, get us started with what you woke up with on your spirit this morning, and then I'll come back in. And those are the seeds we're going to throw in front of us. We're going to cast them up into the air and let them germinate, blow where they must go, and then let that drive the conversation. Does that sound okay with you?
sounds good with me.
Okay, so take it away. It's all you, Ken.
Good morning, everyone. No problem. Good morning, everyone. And I just want to talk from my heart. I want to talk from my spirit. I want to talk from my emotions and my feelings. And very simply, what I want to say is I'm going to share things. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I'm going to answer the questions that are presented. But believe me, I do them all through God's will. That's what I try to manifest today. That's not what I tried to manifest when I was on the streets or when I was in the penitentiary. You know, never judge a book by its cover. And if you were to look at me, you would think the term I used to say was square. He's a square. Yeah, I'm a square today, but today I am a child of God and I try to give back. And so again, hopefully this will be of a value added to you. I have an interesting story. I have a unique story, just like you have a unique story. So I always tell people, sing your song, and I'm going to sing my song today. And hopefully it will resonate with many of you.
Oh, not sing the song. Okay. La 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 la. I'm ready to sing. Okay. So let's go here. Tell us, share with us a little of the origin story where little baby Ken came into the world. And how did it begin, Ken? Where and how?
Well, it's very interesting that you say that, because most people know their origin story because they get that from their biological parents. Since I was a foster child, I did not know my origin story until 2018 when I met my biological mother. And the story goes very simply. My mother was a runaway teenage white female, age 17, that ran away growing up in New York, and then ran into my father, who was a pimp and drug dealer. She was impregnated by my father, the pimp and drug dealer, black man from Columbus, Georgia. And I was put up for adoption at birth. I did 6 years as a foster child, and I knew every minute, probably from 4 years on, that I was not wanted, that I had been, quote unquote, thrown away, because that's the only thing I can articulate as a 4-year-old is that I do not have a mother. So that's my origin story. I mean, if you want that first 6 years, it's many foster homes.
Okay. And I can relate. We were talking about this on the pre-interview, and the thing was, he didn't lead with all this, y'all. It just like I felt like a magician when they pulled all those handkerchiefs out, one color after the next attached. It was just one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. But again, I'm reminding everybody how it reminded me. Wow, never forget. And that's what I tell Ken too. A lot of people that want to become speakers and influencers and things like that, they think that what they need to do is about the woe is me part of the story. That's the poison. No, it's about the antidote that we get, that we bottle from it. The bliss, the champagne bubbles, because, God doesn't make mistakes. It's just what he has to do to keep all this shit interesting. Say it all the time. So when did you get adopted? What age?
Age 6, 1969. I was born in 62.
Me? Oh, yeah, that's right. Same age, too.
let me just say there's another little caveat to this story. So when I was born, my mother, who's a teenage girl, she's like 18 at that point,
Mhm.
she met the adoptive parents, and they were a white couple because they thought I was white. And when you're a newborn baby, you can't really tell. And
Y'all, especially black, right? Y'all don't know this, but a lot of black baby. I looked like I was white when I was born, but you see, I kind of
they sent me back after 3 months because
you started darkening.
the package, the tan did not go away, as a baby. And so that's when I went into the foster system 3 months later.
Now that's called rehoming, you guys.
Yeah.
That's called rehoming.
Yeah.
And it happens. I know one young man who was rehomed 7 times, returned like a bad, piece of meat from the grocery store. But go on, Ken. Go on. So
feedback. Yeah, and it's interesting because what we do in our memories is that we paint a picture of where things have gone. So when I met my biological mother, she had a picture painted that this white couple had adopted me, and I grew up with the white couple, like one of my sisters did. I have a half sister who's mixed, and she grew up with a white couple. They adopted her. It's another story. That's her story to tell.
That was after you, Ken?
Yes. Yeah. That was 65. My father impregnated 3 white females, which, in 52, 62, and 65, I don't want to use the word impressive, but it was not done often. Okay. Let's just put it that way, especially from Georgia. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh,
right.
Really? Okay. It definitely was in New York.
Ringing the bell.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So, so she had a picture that she had painted, and that it definitely had changed. And there were some other things that are of God that are phenomenal within the story of my birth mother that to this day I can't believe. But we'll get to those in time. So I was adopted at age 6. Okay. Let me just say something about that, and hopefully the listeners can resonate or understand. I am 6 years old. I am a child. I wish you could see I only have one picture from when I'm 6. That's the earliest picture I have, which is another sad thing. I have no pictures of me as a baby.
Same here.
At 3. And it's, in a way, it's sad because I have hundreds of pictures of my grandkids. Okay. At 2 and 3 and all that.
Yes.
But let's go to this part.
Okay.
I go in front of the court because the way they do it in the state of New York is that you go into the courtroom alone. You come in with the parents leave, and the judge looks down. It's the first time I was to see a judge. I was going to see a few more.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that at age 6. But anyway, he says, do you want to stay with these people? And they're asking a 6-year-old child. And all I wanted, the greatest need and want for me is to have someone to call a mother, not father, not moving out to the country because I was living in the city. It was to have a mother and to call a mother. And I said yes, even though I had some difficulties with my father, which I was going to have more difficulties with because he was an alcoholic and he was a violent alcoholic. I wanted a mom so badly. But this is the important part, Dr. Lauren, is at age 6, I understood lying. I understood lying because my whole existence when we saw other people was that this was my mother. And they're like, oh, Irene, he looks just like you. That's my mother's name. And I somewhat did look like my mother, but they thought that this was her biological child. And this is my biological mother. And we just smiled and nodded our heads and moved on. But it started me lying at an early age. And I was to continue that literally until probably a year or 2 out of prison the last time.
So it really is. And I relate, even though it's a little bit, and same thing at 9 when they came and took me from that family that I'd been with since day one and said, you are not a Dixon. You're not, you're not even legally adopted. And I'm like, legally, what do you do? And nobody would even give me eye contact, Ken. In the family, they all were looking every place but at me. And you're right. Well, you start believing that nothing in your world is real, including yourself. At least that's how it was for me. So you move through. Take me to Real quick, I'm kind of jumping ahead. But
Yeah, no problem.
I'm so curious. I can't help myself. I was 32. It took 32 years before my mother and I were reconnected. Even longer for you. How did you find her?
So this is the crazy part.
Crazy.
In 2000, not 2000, in 1979, I am 17, 16, 17, and I'm driving with my mother. As I call my adoptive mother, my mother.
Yeah.
I'm driving with my mother, and she says, Kenneth, because she always called me Kenneth. Kenneth, I want to tell you something. And I said, okay. And she goes, your mother was a white teenage girl, and it devastated me. Now, why would that?
Oh, you didn't know that yet?
No, not at all.
Oh.
And why would that devastate you? And the reason it devastated me at age 17, and I was angry at white women for a long time. Okay, and that's a whole nother avenue we can go down.
Okay.
And the reason it devastated me is because that's not the picture I painted. That's not the picture I had painted. Is a vision of my birth mother. And I still always wanted to meet my birth mother. Okay. And really, it was weird because a lot of it, I wanted to forgive her. I'm a child and I want to forgive this woman. First, I was angry at her and knowing that she threw me away, but that's not what she did. And I understand so much more as an adult.
Sure.
But anyway, so I get this information and I'm angry at literally white women. And I took it out on them. Yeah, that's for sure. So, you know, so let's fast forward. In 1984-ish, 85, my mom said, I'll help you in any way possible to find your birth mother. Because I always wanted, she knew I always wanted to, find her. And I tried to find, I found out what they call non-identifying information. I can go into the adoption in New York City. I know the whole history of like the adoption. So the oldest adoption agency in the United States is called the Wyndham Agency, and they're out of New York. And they've been around since the 1800s, mid 1800s. And so I was adopted through the Wyndham Agency. So they have information. And what happens is when you get adopted, they create a birth certificate that's fake. It's literally fake.
Right.
And it says Irene and Sam Miller are the parents, da 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 da. But that's not true. It's not real.
Right.
So they have the information. Oh yeah, they have it. But the state of New York, it's at the state level, hides that information. It was one of the many states in the United States. There's only two countries in the world that don't have open adoption. Only two. Okay, New Zealand and the United States. And in the United States, it's by state. So if I was born in, let's say, Oregon, I could have found out at 18 who my birth mother was. But in New York, it had been closed since 1935, 36. Anyway, so I go in there and I started looking for the information. And I could get some information, but unfortunately, they had a fire in the mid 70s. And a lot of their records burned up. Believe me, this is like true.
And mine, the hospital where I was, not to cut you off, but they had a flood and all of their records were destroyed. And that was and when you get all the way there, and then there's a dead end waiting. It can be devastating to the search, but go on.
So finally, and my apologies, in 2016, I did the DNA. And this was an interesting story. So I do the DNA. I know my mother is white, and it comes up with these close family members. And then I look at the family, and there's like two women around the age of my mother, because my mother was from an large Irish family. And I wasn't sure, but then I sort of narrowed it down. So I had a good friend of mine. That's what you do when you have good friends. He had LexisNexis. And so he could get information that a lot of people can't get. And I said, hey, look this person up and tell me where this person lives. And he got back to me. And I looked at where this person lived, and I'm like, my jaw felt. They lived in Bloomingburg, New York. That's where I grew up my first 12 years. Well, from 6 to 12 was Bloomingburg, New York, population 140.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, this is the same, but that person did not move there until 5 years after I left New York to move to Alaska.
Ah.
And I'm like, I cannot believe this. But this was the pivotal point. I had to make the call. And making the call, I was so afraid that that person was going to say, no, I don't want to have contact with you. You know, that's something that happened in the past 40, 50 years ago. I've moved on.
Yeah.
And so I held my bated breath, waiting for that call from the cousin to let me know if she would take my call. And she said, yeah, she'd take my call. And so I called her and I talked with her and I said, I'll fly out there next week. You know, I was living in Anchorage, Alaska, and we made it like a month later. And I said, can you tell me something about my father? And she said, I'll tell you when you get here. So this is where it gets really interesting. So I fly back to where I grew up. I mean, she lived like 2 miles from where I grew up.
Mm.
We're sitting down. I'm showing her pictures of me as a child. And she looks at the picture and says, I met you. I said, what? She said, I met you. I said, what do you mean you met me? She said, I met you at Elizabeth Potts's house. I said, my Aunt Betty, who I'd never mentioned, who's not really my aunt, but how we do in the Black community,
Okay, yeah.
Black family. And she said, yeah, I went to drop off something because the Potts were the only Black Catholic family. She's Irish, she's Catholic.
Yeah.
She had gone up to visit her brother. And she said she came into Elizabeth Potts to drop off a roast or whatever. And she remembers seeing me. And that is true. And I'm like,
but did not make the connection. She didn't
know
know that you were related to her.
No, why would she? Why would she? I'm just a Black
Well,
child.
that's amazing that she could remember you.
Yeah, but she didn't know who Elizabeth. First of all, I never called her Elizabeth Potts. It was Aunt Betty. Yeah. I would never have done that. But what is the chances that she's growing up when she moved 5 years after I moved away, but she was visiting her brother in the early 70s. So we talked, and then it's still, this is an interesting thing, Dr. Lauren, is that people still carry their truth, even though there's no reason to carry that truth.
What do you mean?
So when I asked her about my father, she said, that she had gone to this rooming house. So this is what she told me. She said she had run away, went up to Boston, was coming back from Boston to New York, because that's where she's from. And she met another teenage girl on the bus. And the teenage girl on the bus said, you can stay with me. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, I already know what the rest of the story is. I used to be a pimp. I used to pimp teenage girls. We don't go out there to the bus stop. We don't go out there and get them. Other teenage girls get the girls for us. Okay. It's nothing I'm proud about, but I know that world. But I'm not saying anything. And she said she went to the rooming house and this Black man raped her. I'm like, okay, cool. If that works for you, that's what I'm saying to myself in my head. She passes away a couple years later, and I talked to my Aunt Cookie, and I said, Aunt Cookie, I said, tell me the truth. And I remember her sitting back and she thinking about it. I said, yeah, because she had this Irish accent in New York. Yeah, we met him. We met him. Because my mom and I, we tried to get her out of that situation and went over to the rooming house, not in room house, apartment. I've been to the building. And she came to the door and they're trying to get her out of that, extricate her from living with this drug dealer pimp.
Yeah.
And he came to the door with a gun. Said, y'all need to leave. But yeah, and because she had told me that her mother never met or never knew she had hid out on the pregnancy, but mom knew, and her sister, Aunt Cookie, knew, and she was in communication with him when he was in jail. Da 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 da.
Yeah,
and but that was her story, and I respect that. But I understand a little bit. I understand why she continued with that. But the truth was, she found herself in this situation. But she had me That's a key. A mixed child in 1962
Yes.
from, a white Irish Catholic family in Queens, New York. And she had me, and here I am today giving back.
Okay. That's this. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. It's amazing how, drop my pen. It's amazing how things can start one way and end up over here this way. They say God works in mysterious ways, and we both know, and many of you out there as well. It's true. It's very true. So let's go to a pinnacle piece of the origin story when you were a young man, and education-wise, this is where our stories are very different, because I aged out of foster care where you had been adopted. So then you were able to go to college. I was very bright. I got accepted to some really great schools, but I couldn't go because I graduated at 16 and I was still a ward of the state. So who's going to fill out FAFSA papers? Who's going to help, financial aid? No. So I couldn't go, but you did. You went to college, and not just any college. Talk about that.
Before I go there, I have to rewind to age 6.
Oh.
So I get adopted. When I got adopted at age 6, I'm in first grade. I could not read. I could not write. I could not tell time. I could not even tie my shoes at age 6 because of foster care.
No one's going to sit down and
I had multiple ones. I had multiple. Okay?
Yes.
They were not teaching me that. So that first summer, my mother taught me how to read with phonetic cards. What a beautiful thing that was.
Yeah.
Little 3x5 index cards with PH on it, TH on there. And I cried.
Great.
Well, I cried because I wanted to play. I'm 6 years old.
Oh.
And I got a mom. And she taught me how to read, and I fell in love with reading. So I was precocious. By the 2nd grade, I was reading on the 6th grade level. I always remember that number.
Wow.
And I just fell in love with reading. So by the time I'm 17, I'm a National Merit Scholar, and I applied to only 3 colleges. I applied to Harvard, Dartmouth, and Oberlin. I wanted to go to Oberlin, and I ended up
Oberlin, Ohio.
Yeah. They were the first college to let in blacks and women.
I remember Oberlin. I think I applied to Oberlin, actually, because they had a great music program.
Yeah, conservatory. The Oberlin
Conservatory. I did apply there.
So I go off to Dartmouth, a fish out of water. And I definitely had some struggles while there. As a human, I had some struggles. This is a word I use. I was broken. I was damaged. How I looked at self, how I looked at the world, and how I looked at God was broken. My relationship with God was severed.
Angry. You couldn't tell me nothing. I didn't even want to use the word dog because it was God backwards.
Ooh.
That's how mad I was.
I just wouldn't let him in. I wouldn't let him in.
Me either.
Yeah.
He couldn't even come on my street.
Yeah. So I was and I got introduced to drinking and drugs. But I went to Dartmouth. I did get my degree from Dartmouth. And
did it mean anything?
To get the degree?
Because I started, we're young. And I went off to Up With People instead of going to college, and became a musician and a soloist, and everything should have been right. When 2 years later, I had a record deal with MCA, and it still didn't feel, I didn't find joy. I didn't find heaven. It was like, either it was a combination of too good to be true, when's the other shoe gonna drop, whole bunch of limited beliefs and scarcity mindset. And it didn't feel like when we say to, ooh, that's impressive. Dartmouth, oh my God, how wonderful. But it was a surface thing. It didn't go deep. What was that experience like for you when you hear you cross the stage? You got all these people in the audience that are moving in. They're all anxious about what's ahead of them, but something didn't feel. How did that feel? Did you believe?
I was too broken by then. I was too damaged by then. I went to college damaged. First, I'm young. I'm 17. I'd never been to New Hampshire. I had never seen a prep. I didn't know what a prep was, and I really hated preps for a while because I thought they had it all together. They seemed so together.
Tell people what that is.
So it's a preppy. It's an individual that's gone to prep school. That's what it's called, preparatory school. So you went to Andover, Phillips, Exeter, whatever, Madeira, Miss Porter's school. And so you go to these schools that prepare you to go to usually an Ivy League school or an MIT, CIT, whatever it might be.
Right.
So they're prep schools, and they came off a model out of the public school. They're called public schools in England. Okay. Which is interesting. They're public, but they're really private. So anyway, so I go there and I would see them because the parents would come up and they'd be wearing their, Argyle sweaters and their Docksiders shoes and their khakis and
their Izod shirts.
Yeah, Fair Isle sweaters with the women. And they, a lot of times, man, I'll never forget, I had this picture in my head. There's a thing called golf pants. And there was four. There was a husband, wife, the student male, and his younger sister. And a golf pants, the one they had like bright green on one side and bright pink on the other leg. And it's a golf pants. And they all four of them had the same pants on. And I thought, I was jealous. I was envious because I didn't grow up with that. I'd come out of a situation where the last half of my senior year, I hid out from my father. We had to hide out because he beat the hell out of me. And the police had to be called because my dad was dangerous. And yes, we will get to that part.
Now, this is your adopted dad.
Yeah, this is my adoptive father. He shot my mom 6 times and came to shoot me. So I come off of this. This is my senior year in high school.
I need a fan.
Plus, I'm so damaged. I couldn't drive. I had never drank, barely smoked weed like once in high school. I loved heavy metal music. I got a Jerry curl, which had gone out of style 2 years before, but I'm coming from Alaska. I got a jean jacket that's got every heavy metal band on it. I didn't know who I belonged to. I'm a virgin. I'm messed up, And so I go there into this environment where many people were very mature. They had cars and, again, they had some money.
Knew how to balance checkbooks.
Yeah. Oh, come on. All of that.
Still can't do.
So what I did is I joined a fraternity to belong. In the fraternity, we did a lot of drinking, but it's not what made me an alcoholic or a drug addict. And I started engaging in behavior, especially on the influence of alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
That was inimical to my long-term well-being, and it definitely was not of God.
Yep, take a drink. I feel you. When did it start to all come together or to all make sense? Because you went into the pimp and all that and drugs and streets, and then went to prison just like I did. But that was the place. I was just telling this story yesterday, Ken, how I am so grateful for that back 40 in Carson City, Michigan, where I was laying on the back 40 broken. I wasn't even qualified to be put in a box and say, here's a puzzle, put it together, because pieces were missing. It was like a vase or something that when it broke, it wasn't all the glass wasn't just in one spot where you could sweep it together and try to put it. It was broken to the point where there was dust. It had broken down that far. But God can put together water and turn it into a solid. And that's what I needed to believe. What was it like when you heard, because I know you heard it, when you got the call that so many allowed to go to voicemail? I'm not picking up. I'm broken. I ain't trying to talk to nobody today. And they let that call, which is their calling, when you really are about to find out what you were made for, not what you were put in this world to get paid for, but what you were put in this world and what you were made for. How did that feel? Take us down that path of transformation.
Okay. I have to just give a little backstory to the transformation because I know the exact moment. I was there. Like you said, I was there. So on September 22nd, I
was
arrested 2004.
Okay.
Okay, I'm 42 years old. I had just completed, we'll just say 20 years on the streets. At that time, I had just lost my sugar daddy. So I had this man I provided services for, and he gave me a place to live and fed me and gave me drugs and all that other good stuff. But I had lost him. And I was on my last wit's end. And I made a decision. I called my mom, said, hey, can you send me to treatment for the 14th time? She said, I will get you a ticket to Reno, Nevada, not Reno, to Seattle, Washington from Reno, Nevada. Just be there at 6 o'clock. I said, okay. And went out there and did a quick hustle, and I was paid in crack cocaine. And I went to sell that rock of crack cocaine, a $10 rock of crack cocaine. So I had money for the bus. I had no money for food. It was going to take 2 days to get there. And I sold it to the undercover, what they call the street enforcement team in Reno, Nevada, and I was arrested. The first miracle happens, and that is I am hemmed up, handcuffed, waiting for the cops. I got tears pouring out of my eyes. And the cop comes to me, are you all right? I'm waiting for the paddy wagon. And he said, are you all right? And I said, yes. And he said, why are you crying and smiling? And I said, because I'm going to live. I'm going to live. I can do prison. I've been there twice before. I can't do me on the streets. I can't. I will die. I was dying.
Yes. Yeah.
And because when I got arrested, I love telling this. When I got arrested, I had a pair of sneakers, no socks, pair of shorts, no underwear, and a t-shirt. That's all I possessed
in the world.
That's it. And I had the mustard seed of hope and faith. So let's say I get arrested. So I get arrested. I go in, and I'm safe. I'm in jail, waiting to be sentenced for my third felony. I go in front of the judge, Judge Hardesty, and judge says to me, Mr. Miller, if you come in my courtroom one more time, I'm going to give you the habitual criminal statute, which is 25 to life. And I believed him. I still believe him. That's 21 years ago, but I still believe him.
Okay.
But this is the key. So I'm going to, and he said, I sentence you to, because they do it in months. And he said, I'm sentencing you to 14 to 72, which is 6 years in the penitentiary. And you'll do a period in between. I ended up doing 3 years for a $10 rock of crack cocaine. But I earned every penny of that.
Right. Because you also were collecting all the times you'd gotten away.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
because they caught me for 1% of what I did out there. Okay. They didn't get me for the armed robberies. They didn't get me for the kidnappings. They didn't get me for the attempted murders. They didn't get me for those. Okay. And I'm cool with that. We'll just move on from there. So anyway, this is the key part. I'm in Unit 13, Parr Boulevard, Reno, Nevada. And I'm lying on the bunk, and I had a conversation. You know, I'd say this to people. You say, did you have a conversation with God? God is always talking to me. I listened. That's the difference.
Yeah.
He's always. I mean, I've been in situations where, you know, you need to get out of this situation. You need to leave situations in the motel rooms, on the streets, whatever. God's always talking to me. But a lot of times I would not take heed to his counsel.
Amen.
That's the thing. But I listened to him, and probably the most beautiful thing that I heard, and the one I can, you know, repeat now, is that I'll be there with you. You'll always have my protection, but you still got to do the right thing. Have courage, have heart, knowing that you are protected because you're one of my children. I got that. I mean, I'm telling you, I didn't get that until I didn't understand that. And this is the thing, and I'm pretty sure for every person that listens, and for you also, and this is an assumption, and I'll sometimes make this. Just because God's with it doesn't mean it's going to be painless.
Well, that's why they're called growing pains and not growing
exactly. And I learned to embrace pain.
Yeah.
I've learned to embrace pain.
Count it all joy.
Pain is such a gift from God. But I've gotten to the other side of every single pain, discomfort, or challenge in my life. And I'm talking about since, you know, I got sober. Every single one. And that was the beginning of the journey. That was the beginning of the journey. It was a lot of work to do, though. A lot of work. I was broken.
So you see, I've scooted over here
Yeah.
to peek around, and you can too. Other way. Go the other way.
Okay. Oh.
There you go. So
that's weird. On mine, it's the other way. But
I know I'm used to it. But tell us what we're looking at, because I love the word becoming, and Michelle Obama's book was called Becoming, and Becoming Ken, and I love the ING. The ING is proof that we are within a real-time experience.
Okay.
So I know that this book speaks to not only who you were and how you were becoming who you are, but it also speaks to who you are and who you are becoming. And right there, when you can take a word or a sentence and it works in both directions, even a word as small as wow, means it is a divine experience. So tell us about this book.
Well, this book was a 3-year process. And one of the main reasons I wrote the book, so everybody said, you need to write a book, because, you've heard 2 stories out of about 30 or 40 that are in the book. Because that's all they are. They're a story. They're an experience. And what is the learning lesson? Because I talk about learning lessons from all of them. Absolutely. And the process is that I have a thing that's called integrity. And what that means is that there is an alignment, or what another word we use, if you want to use a big fancy Ivy League word, congruence between what I say and what I do. There's an alignment. And due to that alignment and that integrity, I told people I was going to write a book. And it took me 3 years, but I did it. That's probably one of the key things, is I did it. And this whole book really glorifies God in a lot of ways, because it allows you to see a individual that's been broken due to whatever circumstances, whether they're his own or external, whatever. That doesn't really matter. It's the break. How do you mend that? How do you come back to being God-centered and doing God's will? Okay, so great. And so I wrote the book. It's done well. What I do is I talk from the stage, and I share, and I talk about some specific themes. But my thing is to be a value added to individuals, to maybe take some of their brokenness and begin that process of mending, even if it's for one day, for a week, or for the rest of their life. You talk about that pivot point. Ever since that day, there's so many things I haven't done.
Yes.
I haven't hurt a single person physically. We call put hands on someone in 21 years. I haven't threatened anybody in 15 or 16. Took a few years on that one. I haven't threatened anybody on 15, 16. I'm faithful to my partner, my wife. I'm faithful, okay? I am, to the best of my ability, I don't lie. What comes out of my mouth is truth.
See?
Okay?
Do know
and I give back. And this is not to pat myself on the back. That's my decision, my choice, because I believe that's God's will. And then, the ramifications is that I live with very, very little pain. There's very little emotional pain in my life. I'm not fear-based whatsoever. I am not fear-based. I'll have trepidation every once in a while. I got to do a big speech, or I have to, meet with a client, whatever it may be. So be it. It's easy. That's easy. Some of the fear I've dealt with and lived with. And then the other thing is I have no resentment, and I've had to say it on a couple of podcasts, because I have to really sometimes check myself. Is that true, Ken? Is that true? Yeah. I have no resentment.
Oh, yeah, yes. I know that. I know that checkpoint well. I know that toll booth well. Yes. So
very little, and rarely am I angry. And if I do, and remember, everything's in a gradient. So if I get angry, it might be like a 1 or a 2.
Well, and that's part of the human experience.
Yes.
We are human beings. We're not human duns. It's a part of it. It's what guides the trajectory of the GPS, which is your God purpose system. whatever God's purpose is. It's going to get you there, no matter what you think. But I want to know this. We have about 4 minutes.
Okay.
I want to go into what would you say is the greatest takeaway? Because see, here's the deal. I haven't been able to do that book yet. I get asked all the time, but something inside always says you'll know when the time is right. And I keep feeling like, well, I must not have lived a part of that yet, or I'm not ready or whatever, because when it's time to know, it's usually because it's time to grow. So how did you know it was time, and what did it do that nothing else could have done by putting this down, capturing it inside this container known as the book?
What it did was it validated that I was true to self and true to God. Because really, this is a book that is, again, it's the motivation is that I have integrity, which is a principle that's God-centered.
Amen.
And for me to be true to self was very, very important. And this is, again, because I can lie to you, but I can't lie to God. And then I can also lie to self. And I was tired
That's the worst
of
lie.
lying to self.
That's the worst one.
And really lying to God, because I told God I would do this. So again, remember we talked about truth. If there's a fundamental in this book, it's probably truth. That's the fundamental. God is truth. So that's the fundamental underlying of everything.
You get to see it.
This book is truth.
Laid out there.
What is real? What is real? Now, again, you got to understand, this is my interpretation of past, but this is, it's the best I could do, and I believe it's good. My truth. What
are your hopes for those who grab the book and make their way through it? Because I'm going to tell you now, it can be triggering for people. I've been dealing with potential triggers this entire interview. So what do you recommend? I feel
Read
like
the book.
That there should be, but what should people expect? Now be prepared for this to possibly happen, but keep going. Don't stop. Don't put it down. It's not too heavy. See, it's just enough. Trust me. What can you tell us about that before we leave today?
So every chapter has a story, but it also has lessons learned at the end.
So not
it's not
poison,
just
but the antidote.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And it also has points to ponder. And the thing I would say, if something triggers you, and this is what I talk about quite a bit, is you need to go into those rooms. You may need help, or you may need counsel. You may need a trusted advisor. You may need a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. But you need to go into those rooms and identify, why do I feel this way when this memory comes up? Okay, that is the key. Take away the power of the secret. Take away the power of shame. Take away the power of I am less than. Okay, because you're not. You're beautiful people. You're a child of God. Okay, so you're not less than. And I'm not saying this book's going to cure you, but what I would hope that it would do is allow you to take that next step. That's what I would hope.
That's beautiful. Thank you. You guys, listen, scrolling along the bottom of your screens right now is one of the roads to continue the conversation with Ken Miller. Go to www.kenmillerspeaks.com. And if you just want to send an email, have a personal relationship by starting a conversation outside of this show, then head over to his email. And it's scrolling along the bottom right now, Ken at DNALIFSP.
Denali FSP.
There it is, Denali FSP. Is that a car?
No, Denali is the mountain.
Motorcycle?
No, it's the largest mountain. It's Mount McKinley.
Okay.
It's called Denali in Alaska.
Well, okay. So he's putting mile markers inside. I do that too. Kind of, it's like hiding something in plain sight. It's for our purpose mainly, but I get it. So listen, you guys head over. This story, we barely were able to scratch the surface. And I know that, Ken. We might have to have you back. As a matter of fact, let's talk about that. Hang out backstage for just a couple minutes. And you all listen. If I were to share one thing with you from this today, is to honor the distance. Honor the distance. Don't keep anything in the dark that you've lived. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You will miss your blessing if you only see the curse. The Alchemist book says it best. A blessing that you do not acknowledge will become your curse. So honor the distance. It may not be easy. It may not be profitable. It won't even most likely be expedient. But guess what? I guarantee you, it will satisfy your soul, and it will give your world and the world of those around you a protection that bodyguards could not. So take that with you, you all. Have a divine day, a divine night, a divine everything. And know this, God willing, when I return from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, I leave tomorrow. I'll come back Monday. So there will be replays until then, and I'll see you in full color and alive, God willing, Tuesday morning over on the front porch, where together we will have yet another illuminated conversation just like the one today. Now, get out of here, and don't you dare let my screen door slam. And I tell you every day, and I still mean it, Dr. Lauren loves you just like God does. Love each other. Be good to each other. I will love you, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. There you go. Now go on. Go and change somebody's life. Ken, thank you. Thank you so much. Incredible work. Incredible work. Hang out backstage for a moment. You guys have a divine everything. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Show me your soul. Baby, I'll show you mine. Show me your soul. Honey, it's way past time. How expensive do I have to be? Need I spell it out before you get it, baby? Show me your soul. And honey, I'll show you mine. I'll show you mine. Sign, shamelessly displaying my state of mind.